They made a conscious choice, and you're quite right. The American people do need to know information about our national leaders, especially if that's information that our foreign adversaries, like the Chinese intelligence service, actually has.
Joining us now is Peter Schweizer, president of the Government Accountability Institute, and also Peter Boyer, executive vice president of the Government Accountability Institute. Gentlemen, thanks very much for joining us.
Thanks for having us.
Good to be here.
You both have been around for a long time. I've been around for a pretty long time. This marks just over 40 years for me in television news. But if you had asked me 40 years ago, when I was just getting my start, that most of the mainstream media in the United States of America would ignore or suppress the Hunter Biden story during the month of October, less than a few weeks away from a presidential election, I would have laughed in your face. But that's exactly what happened. Peter Boyer, you have worked in the gamut of newsrooms covering the political spectrum, from the New York Times, the New Yorker, the Daily Beast, to Fox News. Take me inside one of those newsrooms to describe the process that would result in the suppression of a story like that.
Yeah, absolutely. As you know, Doug, it is, to us, to you and to me, it's shocking when you put it the way you did, in the abstract. Well, here's a huge story that absolutely would have an impact on the presidential election, a pretty big deal. So, of course, everybody's going to be going after it, hammer and tong. But in fact, the reality of the world we live in now, most unfortunately, is the newsrooms are a very closed, tribal entity. I mean, these are people who see each other every day, they talk to each other, they share tweets, they share emails, and they see the world one way more closed than when you and I first broke into the business, where, Democrats knew a Republican, they knew people who had been to church, they knew people who had gone to a college football game, for example, they knew folks on the other side in other tribes. And in fact, we didn't think of ourselves as being tribal. Every newsroom, pretty much, certainly in the mainstream media, is a closed society.
Peter Schweizer, this one for you. I think another factor that might play into everything which the other Peter just described is what sociologists call self-selection. And the process begins very, very early. The journalism schools, you provide either the resume tape or your series of clips to the editor who's going to hire you. They look at it, you use the right language, you conform to their way of thinking, and you join the club that Peter Boyer was just talking about.
Yeah, I mean, it used to be the ideal in journalism was independent thought and independent thinking. And, most people associate journalism with Woodward and Bernstein, all the president's men and speaking truth to power. What's happened is the new journalistic class is far different. We've got social media, so they're trying to build their brands. They build their brands by skewing a certain direction ideologically. It's no longer about sort of taking on the establishment or the power structure. It's about taking on certain elements of the power structure, meaning those that you don't agree with ideologically. I think it's sad because, Doug, what's happening is we no longer really have a newspaper of record. We knew that the New York Times was always left of center, but they had journalistic standards that prevented at least some of that from leaking on to the news page. We do not have that anymore, and to me, that's a big, sad reality for news consumers today, where to go to for information.
Part of the richness of the Hunter Biden story, aside from the fact that this is truly a tragedy, the guy was a terrible addict in the throes of addiction, that begs for some degree of appreciation and forgiveness and all that sort of stuff. But when I saw that the New York Post had this story in October and everybody else was ignoring it, the first thing I thought of was, oh, the Chinese government has this information too. They've got this business relationship with Hunter through a company which is very closely aligned with the Communist Party of China. They've got the pictures that Hunter Biden posted. They've got the emails that he sent. They have the email addresses that he uses. They have the email addresses of the people that he was corresponding with, including the soon-to-be president of the United States.
Yeah, I think that's a huge problem. And I think one of the reasons, again, while it's so shameful that the mainstream media ignored this story. And let's be clear, when they say, well, they couldn't verify it, we were able to verify it. We got access to the laptop and we took the laptop files, and we compared the emails with sources of information that we knew were true. For example, the Secret Service had released the Hunter Biden travel records. We know that the U.S. Senate had released some of the financial transactions that had been flagged by the Treasury Department. We took the email files and saw whether do the emails say you're going to Abu Dhabi, and is that reflected in the Secret Service travel logs? And they matched up 100%. So this was not journalists being perplexed or confused or not knowing how to confirm something. They made a conscious choice, and you're quite right. The American people do need to know information about our national leaders, especially if that's information that our foreign adversaries, like the Chinese intelligence service, actually has.
Just think about what Peter just said. I mean, this was, listen, we verified it down here in this little research organization in Tallahassee, Florida. So if we could do it, the New York Times could have, the Washington Post could have, ABC, CBS, NBC, NPR could have verified it.
The Soviet Union, in the Soviet Union, they used to call this compromising information on anybody that you could blackmail. Do you guys believe that the President of the United States, the present President of the United States, is compromised by what his son was doing in any communication that he might have had with his son?
Yeah, I think it's very clear. First of all, that Joe Biden's very close to his son. He cares about his son and loves his son and has sought to protect him, even in the way that he has responded to this story. So there's clearly the emotional bond between father and son you would expect. And then the question is, does a foreign intelligence service like the one in Beijing actually have compromising information? And they absolutely do. They know that they provided these millions of dollars to Hunter Biden, that his father actually received some of those funds indirectly because Hunter was paying his bills. We also know that that intelligence service has these photographs and these images that we have not focused on, but certainly are out there. So yes, they have leverage over them. They call it elite capture in China. It's a little bit different than compromat, but it's this notion of gaining leverage over a foreign political leader, and there's no question that they have it over this president and this first family.
And how is that manifesting itself in U.S. foreign policy, if at all?
Well, I would say on a couple of levels. First, the administration's approach towards China has been extraordinarily soft. Beijing doesn't mind if Joe Biden criticizes them on human rights or on the treatment of the Uyghurs. They have a saying, what they want is big help with a little bad mouth. So the little bad mouth is criticizing them for human rights. His policy posture is to give them access to Western technology and Western capital markets with few restrictions. That's what they want. And this is a very aggressive program Beijing has. Certainly you can talk about the Bidens, but we're just getting ready to release a report on the U.S. Commerce Department, which is supposed to protect American businesses. And as we point out in that report, the Secretary of Commerce in this administration, her family has deep financial ties to Beijing, and it's leading the Commerce Department to not do its job and to actually protect Chinese companies rather than American ones.
It's almost, I mean, it's almost as if there's this willful naivete in our political class. You know, we will participate in, they'll be good guys, they'll want to be business partners with us, and everything's going to be okay. And meanwhile, we are going to make a ton of money by partnering up with them in various businesses. There is no evidence that the other side, and by the way, the Beijing regime is self-avowedly the other side. There is no evidence that the other side today is any different, is any more starry-eyed than the other side was during the Cold War when it was the Soviet Union. I mean, the Soviet Union used to say, as Peter says at the beginning of his book, quoting Lenin, they will sell us the rope with which we will hang them. And that is every indication that is what, that we have every indication that's what China has been about from the beginning.
Hi, I'm Belinda Lane, and thank you for watching Centerpoint. We hope you enjoyed this video. Make sure you hit the subscribe button and tap the bell icon so you're notified every time a new video is posted. Leave a comment if you feel inclined, and keep the conversation going by sharing this video with a friend who needs to see it. Thanks for watching. We'll see you back here tomorrow.